Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to What's Up With That, the show that brings you interesting people, places, cultures, and subcultures here in the South Bay, the San Francisco Bay Area, the state of California, and beyond. And tonight, what's up with disaster preparedness? What's up with the American Red Cross? And what can we do to help people when they're in a situation such as Katrina and more? Well, I think by now all of us are quite familiar with the images from New Orleans of the people desperately searching for something, for some help. I think it brings us into perspective the fact that we are Americans and that in these times of need, we need to join together all of our forces. Perhaps the biggest force helping in this fight is the American Red Cross. Joining me tonight to talk about disaster preparedness and what we can do to help is Lorraine Zipporoli. She is the CEO of the Santa Clara Chapter of the American Red Cross. Thank you so much for coming to the show. Hey, what's up with that?
It's such an honor to be with you tonight, Andrew.
Well, I guess first of all, let's talk about what is the mission in general, the mission statement of the American Red Cross.
Right. The American Red Cross is fundamentally organized to help people prepare and then respond to disasters.
And what is the history of the American Red Cross?
Well, as we talk about Katrina tonight, I think it's interesting to note that the reason we are able to respond the way we are is because we're drawing on 120 years of disaster experience. And the American people and the people of Silicon Valley can be absolutely assured that the Red Cross will spare no effort in meeting the needs of those afflicted by Hurricane Katrina.
So in your tenure at the American Red Cross, there's been probably so many different things that you've touched you and disasters from simple disasters that people might not even think of. Hurricane Katrina, of course, blows it off the charts.
It sure does. The enormity of this disaster is just an unprecedented natural catastrophe, and we are in this for the long haul.
Oh yeah, and they say it could be, a decade even before.
Yeah, the rebuilding of the infrastructure, but more importantly, the rebuilding of people's lives is what I think touches most of us.
Right, and the emotional issues that are going to follow.
Exactly.
So we live here in the volatile zone. We have
absolutely.
disasters that occur in California that we've had some humongous ones. Of course, we can't forget Loma Prieta. Let's talk a little bit about what we do to begin to prepare ourselves for these kinds of disasters, and how the American Red Cross can help us. I mean, from everything from putting together the right kits to just being prepared.
Right. Well, disaster recovery begins before the disaster.
Well, of course, yeah. And that's been the great problem.
That is the great problem. And I'd like to take you back 4 years. I know we're going to talk about Katrina tonight, but in August 2001, FEMA and the USGS had a conference. And the purpose of that conference was to consider where the United States might be vulnerable. And they came up with 3 major areas. Number 1 was a terrorist attack in New York City.
Wow.
Number 2 was a super strength hurricane in New Orleans. And we're here talking about that tonight. And number 3 was a major earthquake along the San Andreas Fault up and down the coast of California. Mother Nature has warned us.
Well, certainly has for hundreds and hundreds and thousands of years.
Exactly.
And so, to prepare ourselves for this, what should we do?
Well, there are some steps that people can take. And there really are 5 important things to keep in mind. First of all, make a plan. Now that sounds like one of those throwaway lines, plan, plan, plan.
Right.
But sit down with your family. Think about the things that in an emergency would be important to you. Where would you go?
Right.
What would you do? Who would need to know about your situation? Build a kit. And build a kit, we can teach you how to build a kit, but there's some fundamentals that are just common sense. radio with batteries,
Right.
flashlights, the medication that you might need, eyeglasses.
Yeah, those things that would be taken for granted.
They're taken for granted in everyday life, but when you have to go, you need to be able to have all of that in one place.
Right.
And sit down and talk to your
Right,
family.
that's the most important part, that they
Most
know
important
where
part.
these things are and they know where to go. And I think,
Absolutely.
you know, you really hit a core. I think, you know, the one thing about the school system that's, I think is, you know, model in California is that they've, in lieu of 9/11 and what happened there, we started what we call a red code. And a red code
Yes.
is preparing, you know, and I'm a school teacher myself and I've taught for a long time. And I thought it odd, you know, 5 years ago when they were, this was even before 9/11, when they were talking about, okay, what happens if we have a terrorist attack? And I'm like, a terrorist attack? Come on now. A terrorist attack in America? That's impossible.
And you know, that's actually the worrisome thing, is that it's so easy for people to think, oh, it'll never happen here.
Of
It'll
course,
never
I
happen
mean, yeah.
to me, you know? And so you make a plan, you build a kit, but then get trained. You
Right.
see, what the American Cross does in the preparedness sense, we have classes consistently to help people get trained. First aid, CPR,
Right.
rescue, advanced CPR, how to use an external defibrillator in,
Right.
in a CPR that's not going well. These are the kinds of things to do. Volunteer. You know, it's very easy to think about, well, the other guy will do it.
Right.
But if you make a plan, build a kit, get trained, then volunteer.
Become an active
That's your
participant.
opportunity to put those skills into
Right.
practice. Give blood and contribute money to your local Red Cross. You know, we're like a fire department. You don't think about us when there isn't a fire.
Exactly.
But when that fire happens, you want that truck rolling. You want those strong guys.
You do.
You want those hoses, right?
Exactly. I mean, the American Red Cross, of course, is synonymous with help, and I think everybody, it's like you say, they don't think about it till it's there, and when it's there, they realize this fantastic job that this organization
Right.
does. We're going to take a short commercial break,
Okay.
and we'll be back with Lorraine and more about disaster preparedness and the American Red Cross, so stay tuned.
Across the country, Americans are rolling up their sleeves to help each other.
Showing true strength of character and kindness and compassion.
Spirit and enthusiasm. Together, we make America strong.
Find out how you can serve, no matter where you are in life, at nationalservice.org.
It's your world.
It's your chance to make it better.
Apply online at nationalservice.org and answer the President's Call to Service.
Hi, we're back here with Lorraine from the American Red Cross. Tell me a little bit about what does the landscape, the scope of what's going on in the American Red Cross, both locally and nationally, look like?
Sure. You know, since Katrina hit land, the Red Cross has mobilized over 900 shelters in 27 states. We've already served with our partners 9 million meals. Now, I know those numbers are staggering.
Yeah, but 9 million meals is a lot of meals.
Right. And so it's hard to get your mind around that. So I thought about, let me just give you a window in. Last night alone, the Red Cross housed 200,000 people across 46 states. We have 85,000 volunteers on the ground, and we're working to train 40,000 brand new volunteers across the country. Now, I'd really like to tell you what's happening locally, because you'll be very proud of your community when you hear this. We knew on August 28th that this was really going to be a very big deal. So we started what we named at the time, and now has sort of become a model across the country, boot camps.
Okay.
And we trained, since August 28th, 320 brand newly trained people that volunteered spontaneously, Andrew, called up and said, how can I help?
Right.
So we developed what we called a boot camp, an intensive 10 to 12 hour day where we teach people the basics of mass care, sheltering people, feeding people, bringing emotional support to
Which
people.
is a big thing. I would think emotional support is just way up there for someone that's lost everything.
It is such a huge issue, and we're also seeing evacuees already who have made it to our area.
Wow.
And they have made it in very inventive ways. You know, yesterday I had the humbling experience of meeting a woman by the name of Lillian. She was in New Orleans, she lives in New Orleans, and she told me the water was up to here when she got out. She's 79 years old, and she hitchhiked with her disabled son all the way to Arizona, and then got on a flight and got to our Red Cross, where we are caring for her health needs and her housing needs right now as we speak.
It's amazing what the human will and the human spirit can do.
Right.
I mean, it's just amazing when you have to do something and you can find that within you. You know, that's the inspiration, I think.
The enormity of the human spirit is what gives us hope. We are training 150 volunteers locally, and we think by the end of October, we will have trained 2,000 people. Now think about it, Andrew. If everybody got trained and volunteered, Silicon Valley could become one of the safest places to be because people would know what to do.
And they do predict that sometime within the next 20 years we will face a large natural disaster. The Hayward fault line, they say, is one of the most active, it's not the most active, and compounding that is that they've built, you know, it goes right under residential areas, it goes right under a state university, it's there.
And you know, but that's the risk. And there's some good news here, though. California is actually one of the leading states in emergency response. And at the Santa Clara Valley chapter, we've been working with the county and the city in not only preparing for those potential evacuees that we thought might come one way but came another way. And we were able to mobilize through the good graces of Mayor Ron Gonzalez, through the county executive, Liz Nish, and then the president of San Jose State gave us vacant student dorms to provide a sanctuary, a home away from home for these evacuees. And we're looking at our coordinated regional Silicon Valley response.
And I think as people get involved, like you said, with these volunteers, you know, I think it's the chain reaction begins. I mean, they get really into it, they learn their skills, and they say, wow, you know, I mean, you're looking for something to do, some way to give back, some way to, you know, help some people. They're going to be your, you know, shining stars.
Absolutely. And I can imagine a day where this entire community has become prepared. They have done the pre-thinking. You know, when a disaster hits, it's easy to say, well, the feds need to come or these people need to come. But the reality is, for the first 72 hours, disaster is a local business. Disaster response is not only up to the community, it's up to each one of us personally. We need to all make a commitment.
And you touched a little bit about local disasters. What have been some of the disasters in the last 4 or 5 years that
the
really
one
touched you?
The one that I keep revisiting in my mind is we had a huge fire in Willow Glen. 232 people lost their homes. The building was not able to be restored, and they all had to find new communities, in some cases new jobs, new places of faith, new centers for their children, new schools.
And that's such a struggle, you know, it's such a day-to-day struggle just to get, you know, to live and then to have something like that. What was the situation with the apartment?
When the apartment fire swept through this 3-story building, it went fast. And we sheltered for 3 weeks, 232 people. And we're the bridge to assistance. We get them through that first 60 days, 90 days. And then we make sure that they're connected with the vast network of wonderful community services from the county, from the city, from the nonprofit volunteer agencies. And we make sure all their needs are met, from health care to mental health care to housing, to job retraining if necessary, plugging their children into schools. And you know, during that shelter, I want to paint a picture for you. During the Willyoung fire, the first night, we had our cots and our army blankets and our food. And by the second night, the room was transformed because of a local nonprofit called Project Linus. They knitted blankets.
That's
and
awesome.
we had colorful Afghans and purple and pink flowers that the kids were snuggling up with. And we had teddy bears.
And you probably get the women's clubs that come in with their crocheted sweaters and all that stuff, and the whole community comes together.
And it becomes a community within a community.
Yeah. Okay, we'll be right back. We can take one more station break, and we'll be back to talk about disaster relief and preparedness and some more stuff. So stick with us. We'll be right back.
Community. It's people coming together for a common goal. There's a group uniting communities around the world, working to overcome poverty so future generations may never know it. Who is this global force? The humanitarian organization, CARE. CARE enables communities everywhere to find lasting solutions to poverty. CARE, where the end of poverty begins.
Hi, we're back here with Lorraine from the American Red Cross Santa Clara Valley Chapter. She is the CEO, and we've been having a very interesting discussion, informative discussion, and hopefully a very helpful discussion to all of you on disaster preparedness and, you know, being a community member and getting out there and volunteering. All right, let's say a disaster has happened in a magnitude in Santa Clara Valley. I come to the American Red Cross, probably very upset, bewildered, probably in a bit of a state of shock. I come to the American Red Cross, and what happens to me?
The very first thing we're going to do is make sure you have what we call a caseworker, someone who's going to make sure that your initial most pressing needs are met. And that might be anything from that you just need to tell your story, you need someone to listen to you, and then we'll go on from there. Are there health conditions that are pressing? Are you in need of housing or shelter? Are you in need of nutrition? Are you in need of medical care? Are you in need of connecting with your family? Do you not know where the rest of your family is?
Right.
So those are the kinds of things we'll be worrying about first, with you and for you.
So then, okay, after that, we go to shelter or...
So it all depends on how it would happen, Andrew. But let's say you were in that Willow Glen fire.
Okay.
So in that case, the community opens its arms immediately. The leader of a church that was just down the block opened up his church, and that served as our initial evacuation site as the fire department were putting out the fire. We then brought those folks, 230 people by bus, to Willow Glen Middle School, and began to set up the shelter where we had their showers and bathrooms and the space to let them sleep and let them get comfortable and let them get washed up. And then we started giving them information. They needed to know, were they going to return there? People have great needs for information. They don't always hear it at first, so they need to be told information more than once and in several ways. We also have people that can interpret. Not everybody speaks English. So we worry about all segments of the community.
That's great. So let's say you have a family that comes in that has been separated.
We have that right now.
Okay, and I mean, I would think that would be extremely traumatic. Well, what do you say to the person? Let's role play here.
Right.
I come to you and I say, I can't find my parents. They're elderly. I can't. My dog. I mean, this was a big issue in Katrina. My pet. I mean, pets are like your best friend.
You know, very interesting that you should bring up pets for a moment. You know, people overlook that they actually need a plan for their pet
Yeah,
in the
it's true.
case of a disaster.
I never even thought about that.
You know, shelters and hospitals and those kinds of facilities, because of public health reasons, can't accept animals. So it
And
begins
again,
at a
something people don't think
personal
about,
level. Make a commitment to have a plan for what would happen to your pets. Is there a relative out of the area who could take your pet?
Right.
Do you know where the local animal shelters are? How would you get your pet there?
Right. I mean, it's time to start making a list, people. Seriously.
It does begin with a personal commitment. It's so easy to think that somebody else will be there to help, and they will be.
I think
but
so,
it really starts with a fundamental taking a stand and say, when it happens, God forbid, should it happen, I'm going to be ready, not only for myself, but to be ready to help my neighbors.
Yeah. Okay, let's look at what the American Red Cross does, you know, internationally, nationally, and we'll start with Katrina. What was the immediate response by the American Red Cross in Katrina?
Well, the first thing we wanted to do was to get aid as close to the victims as possible.
Which probably was very difficult.
And that was very difficult because even though we wanted to go right to the site, there were reasons, good reasons, why the federal authorities said it wasn't safe for us to do that. So we set up shelters in the closest location possible. But importantly, we knew that local Red Cross volunteers and local community members were not going to be enough to manage this.
No.
That's why we started our training and deploying. So everybody has a role, and it's a question of being nimble and deciding what your role is and then get about filling it.
Right. And so let's talk about then like the tsunami.
Yes.
And what can people do in situations like that? What could me, average Joe here in Santa Clara County, do, a caring person, to help somebody in Indonesia?
Well, you know, first of all, you're not the average Joe. But let me say to you that during the tsunami, I was honored to see the generosity of this community. The Santa Clara Valley Red Cross took a very strong leadership role. We partnered with the Silicon Valley Chamber of Commerce. Within 16 hours of the tsunami hitting, we had legs on the ground. We had a phone-a-thon. We raised an average of $3.99 per household just from Silicon Valley.
It's amazing. I mean, people will really open their hearts and their pocketbooks when they something like that, of that magnitude. How can people locally get involved if they can't, like, go to the classes, take the time, effort? What would, I mean, neighborhood bake sales, I mean, we can bring it down to, you know, I know schools have done stuff.
You know, schools are working, local restaurants are working, community groups are doing fundraisers, and all of that's wonderful. We need volunteers that can't be deployed, but that can actually just help. Yes, we're very thinly staffed. We are a volunteer organization. So we need people to help us answer phones, to help put the package of materials together that we use to train the folks that are going out. We call them Go Kits. There are so many things that you don't think about. Go Kits. And there are so many things that go on behind the scenes that seem unglamorous or invisible, but to us, they make all the difference.
Yeah, it's your support staff. It becomes your... Okay, you talked about materials, putting together materials. Well, you have a lot of people in America, and it's been a tradition in America to, you know, do the Goodwill box sort of thing. If people are going to send something to the Red Cross, or what would be the process for people to, especially in Katrina, where you have a situation where you know, if people you know, Americans, like someone might send an apple pie or something. Of course, you know, a banana nut loaf or something.
And I understand the reason that would be the instinct of the human heart. And thank God for it. But the American Red Cross is actually not in a position to accept those kind of donations. the logistics of that are just not workable. So what we ask people to do is, instead of making the pie, donate that money if you can. Or go and make that pie and have that bake sale that you talked about, and then donate those funds that you collected, because money is the most fungible, most fluid thing. That can go to the victims, and we can use it as it's needed. When you get into bulk items, there's no way to match up the item to who needs it. So that's the least efficient way to be helpful.
Yeah. So let's talk, we're getting close to the end of the show, about the victims. Okay, once they've gone through the Red Cross and they're out, what other things can the community do? Because there's these are long-lasting problems. So, okay, they've survived the disaster. They're trying to get their lives together. Now it becomes a larger kind of communal thing. I mean, community is really what it's all about.
Community is what it's all about. And we need to be thinking about embracing perhaps new members of our community. When I think about the over 200 people who have made it here, we don't know. You know? We don't know that they're going to have a home to go back to. We don't know that that's going to be a reality. So we need to make a home for them here, welcome them into our community, help them find jobs. If employers have opportunities to employ these folks, let us know. Let the agencies that work with job placement know. The schools have to be open and pliable to accept new children. The faith-based communities, which are wonderful, need to embrace these folks from a spiritual perspective, and they already are. So when you talk about community, you hit it right on the head, Andrew. We need to incorporate these people into our community as members of our community.
And welcome into our house, into our lives, and remember that, I think ultimately remember that this could happen to us.
Any day it could be one of us.
Right. Well, this is all the time we have for What's Up With That. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Hopefully this will spur our viewers to action, move to action, to be proactive, get those kits ready, be prepared, because, you know, Mother Nature, she doesn't tell us when she's gonna unleash something, but if we're prepared, if we're a community and we're together, I think, you know, with the help of people like Lorraine and the wonderful work she does for the Red Cross, we're going to make it, and we're going to be a better world for it. We'll feel better, the community will feel better, and the world will be a better place for all of us. Thank you so much, and best of luck with all of this.
Thank you, Andrew.
Keep sending those dollars to the American Red Cross. And to our viewing audience, as always, if you're walking down the street and you see something interesting and you wonder to yourself, hey, what's up with that? Well, tune into our show, What's Up With That, and maybe you'll find exactly what you're looking for. We'll see you next week on What's Up With That. Good night, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.